Hey, thanks for checking out the video. I'm just testing with a couple of pieces that didn't turn out. Going through sanding and trying different finishing techniques. So as you can see, this part, I mean, it's good, but you know, if you're trying to show this off in a, well, in this case, a vehicle, that rough texture is not going to really match the rest of the car. So what I just did was I took an orbital sander that I've got here, just a standard DeWalt corded model, and some 80 grit sandpaper, and I just went through one pass basically until the lines disappeared all the way, and it actually looks pretty cool. This kind of reminds me of an old matte style finish on plastic parts of 80s, 90s cars. So what I just did is put a more fine-grained sanding pad on here. This is 120 grit. Now this says that it's a final prep grit. There's a lot of people that would go even higher than this, but I'm not going to go for a mirror finish. I actually want to see some kind of texture on this. So I'm going to sand this some more, and then I'll cut back and show you the results. I'm probably only going to do half of this with the 120 grit, so we can do a comparison between this half that's just at 80 and then this half that's at 120. So I just finished going over this piece with the 120 grit sandpaper. The one thing that is challenging I'm seeing is the grain here is starting to come back from the previous layer. Or I'm sorry, the layer underneath, the top one that I sanded. So there is kind of a, I guess, a finesse to this that you need to have. Otherwise you're going to start running into the underlying layers and, you know, I guess start all over again. It's probably overkill as well. I started thinking about this, that to even start with a higher grit. This material is plastic, so it's going to break down pretty quick, and I think that the 120 grit sandpaper as is, just in one pass, will be enough. That being said, you know, the overall characteristics between the 120 and the 80, I can see a little bit of difference, but I honestly don't see that much of a transition as a whole. So depending on what kind of texture you're looking to go for, if this is something you're looking for, I think this is a good solution. An orbital sander with this material, I would say don't put too much pressure down on this sander as you're going, because it's really gonna eat into this material really fast. This, if you notice, I cut into the underlying layer, and that happened within, I mean, not even a second it started to do that. And also you can tell uneven pressure will show up with this kind of underlying layers peeking through, only in certain areas. So don't press too hard, keep a nice even pressure on it, and let the orbital action of your sander, if you have one, do the work for you. So I'm going to keep playing around with this. I'm going to try another pass with starting with the 120 on another field print, and let's see what that looks like. So I just went over this piece with 120, and I didn't start with 80. It looks pretty good. I don't see there being that much difference between the piece that I staged at 80 first and then went to 120. It looks very similar. It definitely did take a little bit longer to cut. The other thing I wanted to mention when doing this is your edge fills. They tend to be a little bit harder for the sandpaper to cut down, and so what I was getting, and you can kind of see it right there, where the edges, the inside and the outside edges were being cut down by the sandpaper, but the inside lines were still protruding. So that might be down to printer settings, a myriad of things, I'm sure. So you definitely have to gently go back multiple times and make sure you get a nice smooth finish and you don't miss any of the lines. The other thing I did just to experiment was, I guess, just blew on them with the air tool. Didn't really seem to knock much material out, which is good. That means that if you wanted to sand this and then prep for paint, you wouldn't have to worry about too much dust being trapped in the piece. And that's probably going to vary depending on what part it is you're sanding. This is solid infill, so it's just a flat piece. The other thing I'll make mention of is I did print this at a 0.2 layer height, 0.2. You could probably go a little bit big. Well, I guess it depends on your nozzle diameter, but that would allow you to, I'm saying, safely sand this a little bit better than, say, 0.1, because with a 0.1 layer height, you're going to eat through that layer really fast and end up in the next one. So I think if you're looking to try this technique on some of your prints, make sure you use a thicker layer height where you can stand it, and that'll probably make this sanding job a lot easier. So that's it. Thanks for checking out the video. Appreciate it. Leave any comments, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thanks.